I hadn't been back to Fairfield in nearly a decade. It's one of those Midwestern towns where time moves like molasses, sluggish, predictable, and suffocating if you stick around too long. Two outsiders. It looks quaint, idyllic, even, but to me, Fairfield has always felt like something that never quite blinked. I came back because of my mom. She called a few weeks ago. Said Dad slipped off a ladder trying to clean the gutters. Nothing major. But she sounded nervous, not worried for his health, just tense. She asked if I could come home for a few weeks to help out. I didn't ask too many questions. So here I am. Same cracked sidewalks. Same corner diner still serving that weird peanut butter and chili sandwich. Same faded welcome sign on the highway. Welcome to Fairfield, where safety never sleeps. It gave me chills as a kid. It still does. Only now, the word safety looks like someone's tried to scrape it off. My parents' house is just as I remember 2 stories. Brick, a sagging porch, and that odd clicking noise in the pipes. Mom greeted me with a hug that was too tight. Dad waved from the couch, leg in a brace, remote in hand, eyes barely leaving the window. Dinner was quiet meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans overboiled into gray sadness. So, I asked between bites, how's Fairfield these days? Mom smiled like it hurt. Same old town. Peaceful. Dad gave a short snort. Still no Walmart, if that tells you anything. I tried bringing up old friends Jared, Lena, Kyle, people I practically grew up with. Mom said they had moved. Dad just went back to watching the window. There was a rhythm in this house. Careful, rehearsed, like they were following a script and afraid to improvise. Later, I went for a walk. Needed space. The house felt like it had shrunk around me. The town looked unchanged, but too unchanged. No upgrades, no new paint, just frozen in time, like it had been laminated. The corner store still had the help wanted sign from when I was in high school. The church bell tower was still cracked. The elementary school still had that ridiculous mascot statue of the fighting squirrel. But something was new. Behind the fire station, I spotted a tower I'd never seen before. Metal, rusted, maybe 30 feet high. At the top was a siren, shaped like a warped satellite dish. A sign bolted to the chain link fence read, "Emergency siren, do not be outdoors when activated," and scribbled beneath it in black marker, "It sees through you." I didn't sleep much that night. Around 2, windows were up. It happened. The siren went off. It wasn't a fire alarm or a weather warning. It was lower, more primal, like something alive was howling through metal lungs. It lasted under 2 minutes, then dead silence, until I heard it. A slow knock on my bedroom window. 3 taps, then stillness. I didn't dare move. At breakfast, I tried to ask Mom about it. She stirred her coffee slowly. That old thing. Probably just a test. In the middle of the night. New scheduling system. Everything's automatic now. Dad didn't say a word. He just glanced at the window and tapped his fingers in a strange rhythm on the table. 3 beats. Pause. 2 beats. Like a code. Later that day, I stopped by the old hardware store. It used to be run by Eli Booker, a guy who'd fix your sink and your car in the same afternoon. A younger guy was behind the counter. Eli around. He looked at me like I'd asked for the square root of the sky. There's never been anyone named Eli here. That can't be right. He used to, sir. This store's been in my family since it opened. I think you're confusing towns, but I'm not. I'm sure of it. Or at least, I was. That night, the siren didn't go off, but every light in the neighborhood flickered at 2. And when I looked out the window, all the porch lights were off, except ours. The next morning, I tried not to let the weirdness get to me. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe the siren really was a glitch. Maybe the guy at the hardware store was just a jerk. But something about the silence in Fairfield, it wasn't peaceful. It was loaded, like a held breath that never gets released. I found myself walking out to the old high school track, where Jared and I used to run laps during gym class. The fence had rusted so bad it looked like lace. The field was overgrown, but not abandoned, just untouched, like someone had ordered everyone to leave it alone. At the center of the football field, I saw Lena Miller. She was sitting on the bleachers alone, hands folded on her lap, staring at the scoreboard. I called out, "Lena." She turned slowly, At first, I was relieved. She looked the same dirty blonde ponytail. Same quiet confidence in her expression. But something in her eyes made my stomach twist. They weren't blank. They were focused, but not on me. Luke Carson, she said. Not a greeting. A label. Hey, it's been years. I didn't know you were still in town. I never left. She smiled. Thin and exact. We talked for maybe 5 minutes. I asked about her work, her family. She gave mechanical answers, as if rehearsed. Every time I brought up the Siren, she looked past me and said, "The town conducts routine drills. It's for our safety." Same line Mom gave me, word for word. I asked about Jared. She blinked, then said, "Jared moved to Kansas. He hated Kansas." Another blink. I wouldn't know. Then she stood up and walked away, her footsteps in perfect rhythm, like she was counting beats in her head. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay in bed listening for it any sign the siren would blare. At exactly 2. It did. The howl wasn't as long this time. It rose and fell in a strange pattern like Morse code in a language I wasn't supposed to understand. But I didn't stay inside. I know how stupid that sounds. But I needed to see what was happening. I crept down the stairs, avoided the creaky 3rd step, and slipped out the back door. Fairfield looked warped. Everything was brighter, like the moonlight had turned silver blue and was burning instead of illuminating. The houses were all dark, but the people were out. Neighbors, friends, people I recognized from childhood. They stood on lawns, sidewalks, rooftops, all perfectly still. Then they twitched, not like stretching or fidgeting, like a puppet's limbs being pulled. I watched Mrs. Glenn, who used to babysit me, bend backward at the waist until her fingers scraped the grass. Her head jerked side to side as if following a rhythm only she could hear. And then the chanting began. They all whispered the same name, again and again, in one long, horrible chorus. Luke, Luke, Lugu. It wasn't hostile. It was hungry. I backed up toward the porch. That's when I saw the threads. Thin, almost invisible unless the light caught them just right. Dozens of glistening strings stretched up from their spines into the sky. They didn't reach clouds. They went higher, far higher. And above Fairfield, partially obscured by swirling fog, was a disc-shaped shadow, hovering silently. No engines, no lights, no sound. Just a vague suggestion of something massive and watching. The threads pulsed like veins. The people below responded, jerking, twisting, swaying, and still, they whispered my name. I turned to bolt inside and saw my reflection in the window wasn't moving. It was still staring at the street behind me. I looked away. When I looked back, the reflection was smiling. I wasn't. The siren ended. The light shifted back to normal, and just like that, everyone was gone. Porch lights flicked back on. Mrs. Glenn was inside, her TV glow visible through the curtains. No one was outside anymore. No one except me, and I felt like something had taken note of that. The next morning, I told my dad what I saw. He didn't look surprised. He just said, "Next time the siren sounds, stay inside." Luke, I pushed harder. "Dad, that thing in the sky, those strings, what are they doing to people?" He took a long sip of coffee and said softly, "They're not doing anything to us. They're keeping us alive." I didn't know what to say after that. My dad had never been the type for drama. He was ex-military, a contractor most of his life, the kind of guy who could fix a lawnmower engine with duct tape and spit. But when he said those words, "they're keeping us alive," he didn't sound like a man giving advice. He sounded like a man repeating something he'd been told so many times. It had become a fact, like gravity, like death. I went outside again that afternoon, even though my gut screamed not to. The streets looked the same as always: mowed lawns, faded flags, old pickup trucks in driveways. A few people were out walking dogs, jogging, pretending it was just another Tuesday. But now that I knew what I'd seen, it all looked wrong. Like a movie set just before the actors take their places. At the corner of Hawthorne and Elwood, I saw Kyle Bishop. He was throwing a football with a kid I didn't recognize. We locked eyes. He smiled. "Kyle," I said. "Man, it's been forever." He dropped the ball and walked over. "Hey, Luke, still playing QB?" I joked. Kyle nodded slowly, like he wasn't totally sure what the word quarterback meant anymore. Yeah, Coach still runs the same drills. Coach Hammond. Sure, he said, too quickly. Coach Hammond had died of a stroke 6 years ago. I didn't call him on it. Instead, I asked, "Do you remember the siren last night?" Kyle blinked. "Don't think it went off last night. You were outside. Kyle, you were chanting my name." He didn't flinch. He just smiled and said, "Siren means shelter." Then he picked up the football and went back to the kid. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, I pulled out a spiral notebook and wrote down everything. Everything I remembered about the siren, the people, the hovering object in the sky. I listed names, dates, how long the siren lasted, what time it started. At the bottom of the page, I wrote, "If I forget, read this." Because that's what I was starting to suspect. The town doesn't just lie, it erases. At 1, I sat by the living room window with a camcorder in my lap. I didn't know if I'd catch anything on film, but I had to try. Maybe if I got evidence, I could finally confront my parents. Maybe I could tell anyone at 2. The siren started. This time, I didn't go outside, but I recorded everything. Through the glass, I watched Mrs. Glenn crawl across her lawn on all fours. Her body stiff and unnatural like a wind-up toy winding down. I saw Kyle and Lena walking in perfect sync down the sidewalk. Their heads tilted at the same unnatural angle, whispering something I couldn't hear. And I saw threads again. Only this time, they were thicker, pulsing, and connected to a shape that loomed lower than the night before, closer to the rooftops. Through the camera's grainy night vision, I captured something no one should ever see. Faces, hundreds of them, stretching out from the disc like the surface of water had frozen mid-screen. Mouths wide open, eyes rolling, as if the object itself was made of people or what was left of them. They weren't watching the town, they were watching me. The siren stopped, and the camcorder powered off completely dead. Despite being fully charged an hour ago, I rewound it the next morning. Nothing. Just static. Even the tape was hot to the touch. I finally confronted my mom in the kitchen. "You have to tell me the truth," I said. She poured coffee with shaking hands. "It's not our place." "Whose place is it?" She looked up, tears in her eyes. "Luke, it was here before us. Before Fairfield. Before the state had a name." I stared at her. They called it an experiment once. Said it was man-made, but we knew better. "Who's they?" Her mouth tightened. "The people who made the deal. The ones who built the sirens." I sat down slowly. "What kind of deal?" She slid a faded newspaper clipping across the table. It was dated August 2nd, 1993. The headline read, "Fairfield exempted from federal census due to population irregularities." Beneath it was a grainy black and white photo of what looked like the same disc I'd seen, only smaller, blurry, and buried in government doublespeak. "It doesn't want everyone," Mom said, "just enough. And in return, it lets us stay." I couldn't breathe. I asked one last question. "If I leave, if I tell someone, what happens?" Mom looked out the window, then back at me. "We won't remember you, Luke." She paused. "And neither will you." I didn't leave the kitchen for hours. After Mom dropped that final bombshell, "We won't remember you, and neither will you." She went back to washing dishes like nothing had happened. The sound of the sponge dragging across ceramic was louder than it should have been. Or maybe my brain was just screaming for silence. I went upstairs and locked the door behind me. I grabbed the notebook I had hidden under the floorboard and reread my own handwriting, just to be sure I hadn't started slipping. "If I forget, read this." That line looked fresher than I remembered writing it, almost like I'd written it today. My hands trembled. Was I already forgetting? Around noon, I walked to the Fairfield Public Library, the only brick building in town that hadn't had its windows replaced since the 60s. The air inside was thick with dust and the scent of aging pages. 2 ceiling fans rotated lazily like they were trying not to wake anything sleeping above them. Mrs. Abernathy, the town librarian, was still there, or at least something that looked like her. She was at her desk, scanning barcodes on books with a scanner that hadn't beeped in years. "Mrs. Abernathy," I said. "I'm looking for old newspaper archives." Her head turned slowly, her eyes unfocused. "We haven't had a request like that in a long time," she said. "Are you researching something specific?" "Yes," I said. "Population data. Emergency drills. The Fairfield siren." Her mouth twitched. Then, in a motion so robotic it made me shiver, she turned, stood, and walked toward the back room. "No one's allowed in the basement," she said over her shoulder. "I didn't ask about the basement. I'm telling you anyway." She disappeared into a back hallway, but the air didn't feel lighter. It felt heavier, like something had become aware of me simply by her mentioning that room. I waited until she didn't return, then I moved. I found the archival microfiche cabinet along the back wall. Dust covered the drawers. Labels were yellowed with age. I pulled out anything marked 1970, 1980. What I found scared me more than seeing that face-covered disc, because there were blanks. Whole issues missing, months marked as lost in fire, but no records of any fire department reports to back it up. But it got worse. I found a clipped article with no title, just a photo. My father, younger, maybe 30s, standing outside the very siren tower I'd seen. He was flanked by two men in suits with blurred out faces. No caption, no names, no date, just a stamp on the back. Restricted, internal distribution only, do not copy. Before I left, I noticed something strange in the catalog index, under local oral histories. Someone had handwritten in pencil, "See John Eli Mercer, room 4A, he remembers, room 4A. There was no such room. I asked Mrs. Abernathy about it when she returned, acting like nothing had happened. She smiled. "There's no room 4A. Dear, I left the library with that name carved into my memory. That night, I brought it up to my dad. I didn't expect him to react, but the moment I said, 'John Eli Mercer,' his hand froze midair holding a glass of water. He blinked twice. 'Who told you that name?' he asked, voice dry. 'I found it in the library.' He set the glass down carefully. I knew John. He would like us, only different. Different how? He didn't play along. He stopped pretending, said he was going to expose it. What happened?" Dad stared at the wall behind me like he was seeing something inside it. "He left town, but I thought if you leave..." "He didn't leave. Through the highway." He looked me dead in the eyes. "He went underground." The next morning, I checked the Fairfield municipal records, or at least the ones they bothered to keep digitally. No listing for John Eli Mercer. No property deeds. No birth certificate. No tax filings. But when I walked down Old Sparrow Road, past the abandoned tool shed and the burned-out tractor barn, I found a manila envelope nailed to a tree. My name was written on it in blue ink. Inside was a Polaroid, a photo of the siren tower at night, with a figure standing directly beneath it, arms out, threads connecting him to the sky, his head tilted up, a date on the back, August 2nd, tomorrow. Something is going to happen tomorrow night, and someone wants me to see it, but I don't know if I'll survive it, or if I'll even remember it the next day. So I'm writing this down again. If you're reading this and you're from Fairfield, or know someone who is, ask them about the siren, and watch their face. If they smile too easily, run. August 2nd. I didn't sleep the night before. I barely blinked. The air in Fairfield felt like static heavy and full of invisible tension. Dogs weren't barking. No birds chirped in the morning. It was like the town itself was holding its breath. The entire day was wrong. People were too friendly. The mailman waved like a cartoon character. Kids rode their bikes in perfect loops around the park fountain. Even Kyle passed by my window and gave me a little salute. But no one mentioned the siren. No one ever does. And yet, I could feel it coming. Like the way animals know a storm is about to hit. At noon, I packed a bag, flashlight, backup batteries, phone, even though the signal was still mysteriously dead between midnight and 4 a.m. Snacks, my old camcorder, and the notebook. I wasn't going to let this night pass like the others. If the entity was going to do something tonight, I would be there, and I would remember. I didn't know where the siren tower would lead me, but the photo in the envelope was a map if I read it right. So at 7 p.m., I set out on foot down Sparrow Road, just like John Eli Mercer had done, assuming he was still alive somewhere under the dirt. I passed the tool shed, the barn, the crooked oak tree that leaned like it wanted to whisper a warning. There was no trail, but I followed my instincts and the smell. Yes, the smell. A mix of wet soil, hot iron, and something older like turned earth that had been sleeping for centuries and just now stirred. Near the edge of town, I found it, a grate, half buried in ivy, behind a patch of blackberry bushes. It looked like part of an old drainage system, but it had a keypad beside it, rusted, cracked, but alive. I reached into the envelope again. There was one more thing I'd missed before, a sticky note, folded in half and tucked in the corner. It said, "The password is the first thing you forgot." My hands trembled. I typed in, "Ellie." The lock clicked. The metal grate opened like a coffin lid. I stepped inside. The descent was slow and terrifying. The tunnel sloped downward, walls narrowing, the flashlight flickering. Pipes ran along the ceiling, some groaning under unseen pressure, others dripping with condensation that tasted like salt and metal when it landed on my lips. Graffiti lined the walls, not spray paint scratched in with fingernails or keys. Words like, "I hear him in my teeth," "The sky has bones," "Do not sleep under the light." I reached a circular chamber that looked like an old maintenance hub. Dust danced in the beam of my flashlight, but in the center of the room, there was a chair, a wooden dining chair, pristine, polished, waiting. I didn't sit in it. Instead, I looked at the wall across from it and gasped. Photos, hundreds of them, pasted across the concrete, overlapping, layered in chronological clusters like someone was tracking an entire town's history through surveillance footage. Most were black and white. Some were Polaroids. Others looked like stills from home movies. And every single one showed the Siren Tower. In rain, in fog, in the snow, under moonlight. In some of them, the disc hovered just above it, visible only if you squinted at the light distortion. In all of them, people stood nearby. Different people, different years, all looking up like they were waiting or worshipping. I heard a voice. It didn't echo. It didn't vibrate through the air. It spoke directly into my skull. "He's coming again, as he always does." I spun around, flashlight flicking in every direction. Nothing. The offering will rise. The thread will choose. I clutched the notebook to my chest, heart racing. "Who are you?" I whispered, but there was no reply, just silence, followed by a click, then a hum. The siren had activated early. I bolted out of the chamber, nearly tripping as I scrambled up the tunnel. My flashlight cut out halfway and I finished the last 10 feet in the dark. When I emerged, the sky was deep red sunset twisted into something unnatural, and Fairfield was already transforming. From my vantage point at the tree line, I saw them people emerging from homes, sheds, backyards, some crawling, some walking in perfect lines, some spinning like dancers with strings. Above them, the disc hovered closer than ever, its underside slowly rotating, exposing symbols that shimmered like fireflies trapped in ice. The siren didn't just wail now. It sang, notes stretched beyond the range of human hearing, vibrating the ground, rattling my ribs. I fell to my knees, eyes watering, teeth aching, and that's when I saw her, Mrs. Abernathy, standing in the middle of the intersection with arms raised, head tilted back, and a wide open smile tearing her face in half. She said one word, not shouted, whispered, and yet it carried to every corner of town. "Choose, choose." The words struck like a thunderclap inside my skull, echoing long after Mrs. Abernathy's lips had closed. I was still crouched in the brush outside the tree line, but Fairfield didn't look like a town anymore. It looked like a stage every resident a performer locked in a trance, playing a role written in a language none of them remembered, except maybe me. Maybe not for much longer, because something inside me was pulling, urging me forward. Not with fear, but with familiarity, like I'd done this before, like I was supposed to be there, and maybe I had. A sharp pain bloomed in my wrist. I looked down. The threads were back. Thin silver cords floated in the air, invisible to anyone else but glowing in my eyes now. One of them hovered near my forearm, pulsing gently. It didn't touch me yet, but it wanted to. I backed away, stumbling down a ditch behind the trees. When I landed in the mud, I found myself face to face with Chris McCready, my old friend from high school. Only it wasn't him anymore. His eyes were hollow, literally. Black voids where color and light should have been, and his body twitched unnaturally, like he was being operated by a glitchy puppeteer. He looked at me, tilted his head, then spoke in a voice too calm to be real. "You're not where you're supposed to be, Luke." I stood slowly, my heart thundered, but I didn't run, not yet. "What is this, Chris?" I asked. He blinked one eye before the other, then smiled. "The offering is chosen when the thread selects a vessel. That vessel must walk to the center of the web, willingly. What happens if it doesn't?" His smile widened. Then the thread wraps tighter and tighter until the vessel has no will left. I ran. I shoved past him, ignoring the unnatural stiffness of his body, the distant echo of his voice calling after me. I sprinted through backyards and alleys, ducking under laundry lines and hopping fences until I reached the old hardware store. It had been closed for years, but the back door was still busted from a break-in long ago. I slipped inside, heart pounding, chest burning, and sat down behind a counter filled with cobwebs and rusted bolts. And that's when I finally opened my notebook again. Page after page of frantic notes, Siren times, names, threads, the disc, the photo of the man under the tower, John Eli Mercer. It all pointed to one thing. The siren wasn't the beginning, it was the alarm. The real event was the choosing. The problem was, I didn't know what that meant. Would they kill me, consume me, erase me, or worse, replace me? A low hum filled the air, rising like a choir of broken radios. I peeked out the window. The townspeople had gathered in the perfect circle around the siren tower. At its base, someone was kneeling. I squinted. It was my dad. No. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was wearing his old National Guard uniform, outdated, stiff with metals that hadn't shined in years. His face was blank, and then the voice returned. This time, it didn't whisper. It filled the world. "The vessel resists. The legacy will be taken." My breath hitched. Legacy. Was this hereditary? Was I chosen because of him? Was this what he meant when he said, "They're keeping us alive"? I raced out of the store, pushing through the wind that had suddenly kicked up. It wasn't a normal wind, though it blew upward like the town was being pulled into the sky. As I neared the circle, I could see my dad trembling, threads connected to every limb. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I stepped into the circle. All eyes turned to me. Even the disc above shifted, as if noticing me for the first time. The son replaces the father. The bloodline fulfills the contract. The threads raced toward me. Instinct screamed to run, but I didn't. I stepped forward, and just before they touched me, I shouted, "I choose no one." For a split second, everything froze. Time, sound, the spinning disc. Then the sky cracked. Not thunder, not lightning, just a fracture in reality, like someone had shattered the dome above Fairfield. And through it, I saw nothing. A blank, endless space filled with watching eyes. Millions of them, all focused on me. I don't know how long I stood there, but when the world snapped back into motion, the threads recoiled. The disc above trembled, shimmered, and then just like that vanished into the sky. Everyone collapsed. No siren, no voices, just silence, and me standing in the middle of a town that no longer moved. The silence didn't feel like relief. It felt like something had unplugged the entire town from reality. I stood in the center of the circle for maybe a full minute, heart racing, watching the townspeople slowly regain movement, if you could call it that. They didn't wake up. They didn't panic. They just reset. Each person rose in unison. No one looked at each other. They turned, step by step, and began walking back toward their homes. No conversation, no blinking, just mechanical precision. Even Dad. I tried to grab him as he passed, clutching his arm. "Dad, hey, it's me. You don't have to go with them." He looked through me like I wasn't there. Then he smiled. That same unnatural default setting smile. "The sky is quiet now, And he walked on. Back at the house, Mom was vacuuming like nothing happened, like she hadn't been part of the procession or witnessed her husband kneeling in front of a levitating death machine. The Siren tower was still there, but its surface had changed. Now it pulsed faintly, like a heart buried in concrete. That night, I stayed up reading the notebook again, scrawling every detail I could recall from the choosing, trying to make sense of what I'd seen when the sky cracked open. Those eyes, they weren't just looking at me, they were cataloging me, like I was a failed sample, a deviation, a glitch in the routine, and glitches get corrected. I woke the next morning to the sound of the doorbell, twice, then once, then twice again. Do. I didn't answer. Whoever was out there didn't knock again. But when I checked the porch after an hour, there was a box waiting for me. Plain cardboard, no address, just a word written in Sharpie on the top. Remainder. I brought it inside, opened it. Inside was a single VHS tape and a photo of me, not recent, probably taken when I was 12, holding a fishing pole by Blackbriar Lake, standing between Chris and Dave. Only there was a fourth person in the photo, standing behind us. No face, just a blur, like static had chewed away their identity. On the back of the photo, in thin typewriter font, he chose too late. I didn't own a VCR, but the library did, so I waited until midnight, snuck inside through the broken vent behind the returns drop, and I played the tape. What I saw nearly broke me. Footage from last night, the choosing, but from a vantage I hadn't seen from the sky. The disc, closer than I realized, was filming everything, panning across the crowd, zooming in on faces, analyzing. Then it showed me stepping into the circle, but I wasn't alone. For half a second, the screen split. Two Lukes, one stepping forward, one hanging back, watching. The one who stepped forward shouted, "I choose no one." The one behind him never moved, never blinked, just smiled. Then the tape glitched, static, screams, the sound of dial tones overlapping, 100 voices whispering in reverse. I ripped the tape out of the deck and bolted. Now I'm not sure which Luke I am, or whether I've been watching myself this whole time. Maybe the entity didn't leave. Maybe it's inside me, or maybe it was me all along. There's a final entry in the notebook tonight. The thread remembers, the eye returns, and beneath it, in different handwriting, "You are the Siren now." I didn't go home that night. I couldn't, not after watching that tape. I stayed in the basement of the library, curled up behind the boiler, listening for sounds the building wasn't supposed to make. But Fairfield's silence had returned thick, heavy, absolute. When the sun rose, I ventured outside like prey, crossing open ground. The town was awake, alive, friendly, too friendly. Chris waved at me from across Main Street. He looked cleaner, not just bathed, but polished. His hair perfectly parted, skin flawless like someone had erased every blemish he had ever had. "Morning, Luke," he called. "Cheerful," I nodded back, forcing a smile. "Morning," but in my gut, I knew that wasn't Chris anymore. It was what Fairfield needed him to be, and the town needed me too, but not like before. Now, it needed me to be something else, because the siren hadn't stopped. Not really. Every few hours, I heard it faintly, a tone beneath ambient sound, not loud, not obvious, but there, in the wind through the trees, in the buzz of the old neon sign above Harris Grocery, in the hum of the refrigerator at home, a frequency only I could hear, and it was getting louder. I tested myself, plugged my ears, put on noise-canceling headphones, still heard it. I even left town, drove to the edge of Fairfield, past the old rail crossing, to where the woods take over. It didn't help, because the moment I crossed the boundary, something new happened. I forgot who I was, only for a second, but it was enough. I found myself parked on the shoulder, staring into the woods, holding my notebook like a stranger had handed it to me. When I opened it, the latest entry read, "The siren is internal now." I slammed the book shut and drove back to town. I tried to talk to Mom, told her about the thread, the disc, the choosing, showed her the photo of me at the lake with the faceless figure. She just stirred her tea and said, "That's a lovely picture of you boys." Then she tore it up, Each strip fell gently onto the table like confetti. You need rest, Luke, she added softly. The siren keeps us safe. You know that. But that's the thing. I don't know that. Not anymore. I started testing the boundaries, walking the streets at odd hours, standing under the siren tower, filming myself, sleeping, hoping I'd catch something. Anything out of place. And I did at 3. One night, the footage glitched for 2 seconds. When it resumed, I was gone from the bed, vanished. The camera kept rolling. 3 minutes later, I returned, except I wasn't right. I lay down in bed like someone rehearsing a movement, my hands too stiff, my eyes open too long before blinking. That footage nearly made me vomit because I didn't just look possessed. I looked rehearsed, like whatever wore my face was learning to use it properly. I can't tell anyone. Even if I could, they wouldn't remember. Fairfield is caught in a loop, and now I think I'm part of the mechanism. I started drawing the siren in my notebook again and again, not just the tower, the disc, the threads, and something new. A shape I don't remember seeing, but somehow know by heart. A spiral made of repeating numbers, the same code from the doorbell, the same pattern from the thread pulses. It's everywhere now. I see it on license plates, clock digits, addresses, temperature readouts, even on my skin. I checked my arm in the mirror yesterday, just under the surface faint, but there were 3 raised welts, 2 long, 1 short, 2 long again. I tried scratching them off. It didn't work. Instead, the mark began to glow faintly under my bathroom light, not visible to the naked eye. But when I shone my old UV pen light at it, it responded, not with heat, with sound, a low chime, like a tuning fork humming from within my bone. I dropped the light and backed away, and in the mirror, my reflection didn't back away with me. It just stood there, smiling. I haven't looked in a mirror since that night. Can't bring myself to, because once you watch your own reflection pause before copying you, something breaks inside, something vital, something that separates you from whatever's watching from the other side. That thing in the mirror wasn't me, not anymore. But maybe it never was. I've started sleeping in the basement again. No windows, no mirrors, no screens, just concrete, darkness, and the quiet hum of the boiler to keep me tethered to something real. I removed every reflective surface from the house, covered the bathroom mirror with duct tape, shut off the television, took the SIM card out of my phone and crushed it with a hammer. Still, the siren keeps humming. It's inside me now, not a noise exactly, but a signal, a rhythm in my teeth, a vibration in the walls of my skull. Even when I try to hum something else, any tune, just to distract myself, the siren finds its way back. Tu-won-dwu, over and over. I started recording myself again, not at night this time. During the day, because I noticed something strange, people on the street were starting to mimic my movements. Yesterday, I walked past the diner and casually scratched my left arm. Inside, through the smudged glass, I saw 3 people do the same thing at the same time. I waved at no one in particular while walking home. A man and woman across the street, sitting at the bus stop, waved back, not in greeting, just matching me, synchronized. It's like the town is training me now, or I'm training them, like I've become a metronome they're all dancing to. But I didn't choose this. I'm not guiding anything. I'm just being watched. And worse, I think I'm becoming a conduit. I found something new in the notebook this morning. It wasn't in my handwriting. I swear I didn't write it. It read, "The reflection is a rehearsal. The real performance is coming." And underneath that, "Turn around." I dropped the book and froze. Every instinct screamed not to look, but I did anyway. There was no one behind me. But the air was wrong. Like it had been folded and unfolded too many times. The boiler hissed louder than usual, even though the dial said it was off. And on the cement wall, just above where I sleep, a dark shape had begun to stain the concrete. Faint, oily. It looked like a face. No features, just the outline. Elongated, angular, eyes too far apart, a mouth that dipped too low. It pulsed once, then vanished. I'm losing hours now. I'll sit to write something, blink, and suddenly it's dark out. or light again. I'll check my watch and see that 3 minutes have passed, then I'll look again, and it's 37. Worse, the notebook keeps filling itself. Full paragraphs of my voice, in my phrasing, but I don't remember writing them. Some describe dreams I never had. Others are transcripts word for word of things people said to me that I never shared with anyone. One entry chilled me to the marrow. It simply said, "Your mirror self has already left. You're the copy now." I tore that page out, burned it. Didn't matter. The next morning it was back, written neater. Signed, L.C. The worst part, I'm starting to believe it. I've caught myself in the middle of routines I don't remember starting, pacing the same 5 steps across the kitchen, humming the Siren tune, opening the fridge even though I wasn't hungry, turning doorknobs slowly, rhythmically, in sequences of 2-1-2, and then, last night, I woke up standing in the front yard, not lying down, not halfway to the door. I was already there, shoes off, eyes open, looking up at the Siren tower, and I was smiling. When I stepped back inside, the screen on the old landline blinked for the first time in years. One voicemail. I pressed play. My own voice answered. "Hello, Luke. Don't panic. I'm you, but I'm earlier, and if you're hearing this, the transfer is almost complete. Just let it happen. It's better if we're all on the same page. The Siren isn't the threat, it's the message. You're the envelope, and they're ready to deliver." Click. Silence. I smashed the phone. Didn't matter. The voice still echoed in my ears like it was inside me, and I knew the next time the siren blared out loud, it wouldn't be warning us of something outside. It would be announcing the arrival of what's already inside. The sky tore open again last night, not with thunder, not lightning. It just peeled, like someone lifting the lid of a lunchbox too slowly. I saw what was behind it this time. Not stars, not darkness, just depth, endless depth, like staring into a hallway that had no floor, no ceiling, and no sides, only gravity pulling inward. And from within it came the threads again, thicker now, no longer gossamer strands. They were cables, veins, that reached for Fairfield like it was already theirs. And maybe it is. The siren went off at 3. Turn 3, not the humming I'd been hearing in my head. The real one, full blast, sharp and alive, like metal screaming. Except this time, no one moved. The town stayed frozen. Cars stopped mid-turn in the intersections. People paused on porches. Mrs. Abernathy was halfway into her front door, one hand on the knob, and she didn't blink for 3 whole minutes. The whole town had been hit with a stillness like a freeze frame in a paused film, and I was the only one not stuck. I walked outside barefoot. The grass was dry and sharp beneath my feet. Above, the sky rippled, and that disc, the one I thought had left, descended again. This time, it didn't hover, it landed right in the center of Fairfield Park, crushing the gazebo and the rose garden with no sound, no fanfare, just quiet displacement, like the earth wanted to make room. I should have run, but my body didn't agree. I was walking toward it before I even realized. Each step too smooth, too balanced, too measured. I stopped at the edge of the impact crater. Steam rose off the disc's matte surface. Then a voice familiar and foreign whispered directly into my skull. "Transfer complete. Prepare for mirroring." I looked down. My shadow was missing. There was light behind me, but no outline followed on the grass. No dark twin, just empty lawn. I looked at my hands. They were still mine, still scarred in the right places, but the freckles had rearranged. I had one on my knuckle since I was a kid. It was gone, and in its place, 3 tiny dots in a triangle. I stumbled back. A hatch opened on the disc, not a mechanical one, organic, like an eyelid. Inside was me. No, not quite. It was a version of me mid-construction. Hair patchy, flesh semi-transparent like wet paper. The eyes weren't finished yet. White orbs, twitching under too thin skin. It reached a hand toward me, trembled. Then it spoke. "Your reflection failed." It tilted its head. "You didn't." I ran, sprinted all the way home, lungs burning, shoes be damned. I locked the doors, boarded the windows, sat in the dark with the notebook in my lap. It had a new message. I hadn't written it. They are replacing the ones who adapt. The rest are fuel. You adapted. What the hell does that mean? What is adaptation in this context? Compliance, resistance, silence. I called Dave. Didn't expect him to answer. He did. His voice was flat, like someone practicing English for the first time. Luke, we were just talking about you. I didn't say anything. They like you. You're consistent, predictable. You match the pattern well. He paused, then added, they're offering you a place. I asked what that meant. He didn't answer. The line went dead. I'm not sure what the place is, but I keep seeing things in my house that weren't here yesterday. A second toothbrush next to mine. A coat in the closet I've never worn. A note on the fridge that says, we already made coffee. There's only one of me here, but the house is living like there are two. I don't know how much longer I'll remain myself, if I already haven't been overwritten. But there's a second siren scheduled tonight. I feel it in my jaw, in my bones, in that space behind my eyes. And I think this one isn't a warning, it's an invitation. The siren didn't go off that night, but I still woke up screaming, because in my dream I was watching myself sleep, not like an out-of-body experience. I was standing in the corner of my own bedroom, grinning, watching me twitch and groan and mumble in my bed like I was rehearsing something I didn't understand. And the version of me in bed, he was smiling too. We were both smiling, and I knew the one in the corner wasn't the imposter. It was the one in bed. When I opened my eyes, it was still dark, but not fully dark. The house had a glow to it, like bioluminescence coating the walls, pale blue veins of light running through the plaster like root systems under skin. I touched the wall near the bathroom. It pulsed beneath my fingers, warm, like it was breathing. There were more changes in the house, subtle ones, designed not to be noticed if you weren't looking closely. The photos in the hallway, same poses, different details. Dad's smile in one of them had changed. He was never that kind of smiler. Too toothy, too eager, and my own eyes. In the frame from senior prom, they were just a bit too far apart, wider, watcher wide. I checked the fridge again, same note. We already made coffee, but this time, there was a second mug, still warm. Someone had used it. The couch cushion had a dent. The bathroom mirror had faint steam on it. The toilet seat was up. I live alone. I locked all the doors. I double-checked the windows. But there's another me in here, and I think he's been living alongside me this whole time, waiting. At 3:23, the house went silent, deader than usual. No humming, no boiler, no wind, just a vacuum of sound, like the world had taken a breath and hadn't decided whether to exhale. That's when the television turned on, by itself, even though it hadn't worked in months. Static at first, then an image. It was my living room, live, from somewhere in the ceiling, an angle I've never seen. There I was, standing in front of the TV, on screen. I looked up into the camera and smiled. The real me, if that's even a thing anymore, backed away, heart thudding. The TV loop mimicked me perfectly, but half a second faster. It was predicting me. Then it raised its hand, placed one finger against its lips, and whispered, "Shh! Don't ruin it. You're the final rehearsal." I unplugged the TV. Didn't help. The image stayed frozen on the screen like it had been burned into the glass. I turned it toward the wall and threw a blanket over it, but I could still hear the whisper. Even now, even as I write this morning, Fairfield was different. The people were, gone. No cars. No barking dogs. No delivery trucks. Just the town paused, like a toy set, waiting for the kid to pick it back up. I stood in the middle of Main Street and screamed. Nothing. No one. I walked to the siren tower. It was humming again. But this time, it wasn't the usual frequency. This was music, a haunting melody in the same 2-1-2 rhythm, except it was layered with laughter. Children laughing, not joyfully, mockingly. I climbed the tower. Hadn't done that since I was 12. At the top, I found a small black box attached beneath the platform. It was pulsing, heartbeat rhythm. I pried it loose, took it home. It opened like a flower, blooming in reverse. Inside was a spool of magnetic tape, an all reel-to-reel labeled Luke final cut. It's been playing in my head ever since. Even though I haven't plugged it in, even though there's no reel-to-reel in the house, I hear the words on repeat. The town needs a siren. You are its voice. The town needs a face. You are its skin. The town needs a host. You were always empty. I don't know if I'm the original Luke anymore. Or if there ever was an original. I'm not sure anyone in Fairfield was. Maybe we've always been projections, programs, echoes of something long since unspooled. But I know this. They're almost done rehearsing. The show is about to begin. And the siren, it's not warning us anymore. It's welcoming the audience. The tape hasn't stopped playing in my head. It's no longer just voices. It's instructions, script directions, stage notes for a play I never agreed to be in, but apparently I'm the star. Last night, the words changed again. Scene 12, convergence. Begin at sunrise. Host must report to stage. I didn't sleep after that. Just sat in the kitchen, lights off, listening to the house breathe. And at 6, Dovia, the doorbell rang. 212. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not again. But I looked through the peephole, and standing on my porch was me, same face, same posture. But this version of me was cleaner, crispier, like he'd been printed fresh off a production line. He was holding a clipboard, wearing my face like a uniform. He smiled tight and mechanical, and whispered just loud enough for me to hear through the door. Your presence is required at town center. Curtain rises in 45 minutes. And then he winked, not at me, at the peephole, like he could see through it. I blacked out for 20 minutes after that. I don't remember sitting down, but when I woke up, I was at the kitchen table, hands clasped like I was waiting for a meeting to begin. A fresh mug of coffee sat in front of me, still steaming. There was a name tag pinned to my shirt, Luke Siren 1. I don't know where it came from. I didn't own that shirt. I never printed that badge, but it was stuck to me like it belonged there. I think I understand now. The siren didn't choose me. It built me. Every noise, every night, every silent routine in Fairfield, it's all been part of an audition. A citywide casting process. Each siren event, each test was a rehearsal for the final scene. And I'm the last one standing, or at least the last one that hasn't been edited out. At 6 quintessential, I left the house. I didn't lock the door, didn't bring a bag, didn't even wear shoes. The road was warm beneath my feet, humming softly as if the asphalt itself was rehearsing a tune I hadn't learned yet. Fairfield wasn't empty anymore. The townspeople were back, but different. They stood perfectly spaced apart along the sidewalks, all facing the same direction, toward town square. Every single one wore the same blank expression. They didn't move. They didn't blink. And when I passed by, they nodded, all at once, like a metronome, like a cue. When I reached the square, I nearly dropped to my knees. The siren tower was gone. In its place, a massive stage, black and featureless, like it had grown out of the pavement overnight. Risers flanked the stage, filled with duplicate versions of myself, hundreds of Lukes, some in ranger uniforms, some in flannel shirts, some holding notebooks, others cameras, others tools, each version of me watching in perfect silence. And in the center of the stage was a chair, a single wooden chair, lit from above by a beam of light that came from nowhere. The clipboard version of me stepped forward and pointed at it. You may begin your confession. I hesitated. He didn't blink. The audience is listening. I sat. The light was hot, too bright. I felt exposed, like every version of me, real or not, was peeling me apart with their eyes. And then the sky above the stage opened again. But this time, it didn't peel, it cracked, and they looked down. The watchers, I still don't know what they are. Gods, machines, something in between. But I know they feed on performance, on story, and they were ready for the climax. So I did what they asked. I confessed. I told them everything. About the siren, about the mirror, about the tape, the disc, the replacements, about how I wasn't sure if I was the original, about how I wasn't even sure originality exists anymore. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. I could feel them judging every syllable for coherence, tone, emotional pacing. like critics or directors. And when I finished, the clipboard Luke walked forward and placed a hand on my shoulder. He leaned down and whispered, "Well delivered. The role is yours." And I blacked out. I woke up in my bed. Same room, same house, same note on the fridge. We already made coffee, only this time the name tag was gone, and the coffee, cold, outside. Fairfield was normal again. Kids on bikes, dogs barking, delivery trucks rolling through. But everyone I passed smiled a little too long, held eye contact a little too intensely, and every time I closed my eyes, I heard applause. It's been 4 days since the show. At least, that's what I think. Time doesn't feel linear anymore. Sometimes I'll blink and realize an hour has passed. Sometimes I'll sit on the porch for what feels like 5 minutes, and the sun's gone down, and my coffee is cold and full of ash. I'm still in Fairfield. I'm still Luke Carson. But I think the version of me who confessed on that stage didn't come back. Something else did. Something perfected. There are signs everywhere. My reflection is always a little faster than me. My shadow sometimes splits when I turn corners. And last night, I caught myself smiling without realizing it. Not a small twitch. A full, tooth-bearing grin. It was in the mirror. I wasn't even thinking anything. Just brushing my teeth. And there it was. Like something inside me was proud. The neighbors act like nothing happened. No one talks about the stage. No one mentions the siren anymore, even though I still hear its hum in the ground when I walk across the street. The grocery store is fully stocked, like it's preparing for guests. And there are more people in town than I remember. Faces I don't recognize, but they all act like they've lived here forever. They say things like, "It's good to see you again, Luke. You did great last week. You're really nailing it." They smile wide and walk away before I can ask what they mean. The library has changed too. There's a new section unlabeled full of black binders. Hundreds of them. I open one. The pages were blank. Until I touched them. Then my handwriting began to appear, word for word. It transcribed what I was thinking, what I was about to think. Each binder was a script. Each one labeled in invisible ink with a name. Luke, Dave, Chris, M. Howes, Abernathy, even Mom and Dad. I flipped through the others. They were identical. Each of us has a script. Each of us is being monitored, prompted, corrected. The siren isn't warning anyone anymore. It's giving cues. And the worst part, I don't think I want to fight it anymore. There's a strange comfort in being told what to do, in knowing your lines, in hitting your marks. Yesterday, I caught myself checking the clock and walking to the corner of Main and Prescott right on time for a chance meeting with Dave. We shook hands, laughed, talked about how good the weather's been, and I knew, deep down, we were reading from the same script. His eyes flickered once, just briefly like static on an old television. Then we both turned to look at the same building across the street, like we'd both just received the same note in our earpiece. That night, I dreamed again. Only this time, I wasn't dreaming for myself, I was dreaming into someone else. A boy, 8, maybe 9, sitting at a desk in a small gray room, typing furiously on a keyboard. He had my face, but younger, cleaner. Above him hovered a screen, my screen. He was writing me, I could feel it. Every word he typed became my thoughts. Every line of dialogue spilled from my mouth in real life. He was learning how to write horror stories. And I was the assignment. I woke up in a cold sweat, palms aching, looked down at my hands. Ink, black ink all over my fingers. And on the desk, a typed page. My story, titled, The Siren Script. Character study, Luke Carson. There's no more question anymore. Fairfield isn't a town. It's a set. And I'm not a survivor. I'm not a victim. I'm not even a person. I'm a character. One of many. Somewhere out there, someone is typing this now, watching me live it, studying how I unravel. And the siren, it's not a sound, it's a command. It's gonna go off again tonight. I know it. It's already starting to ring in the back of my teeth, buzzing through the molars like a dog whistle for the rewritten. And this time, I'm not sure if I'm going to run. I think I'm going to answer. The siren didn't wait for nightfall this time. It went off at 3:23 p.m. Sharp. Cold, not a blaring shriek but something worse, a harmonic hum, as if the air was being sliced open by tuning forks tuned to a frequency just above panic. Every person on Main Street froze. Grocers mid-swipe at the register. A barber with scissors paused an inch from his customer's ear. Kids on bikes held perfectly still. Feet locked to pedals that didn't move. Only I moved. Only I heard the words underneath the sound. Scene 14. Final reflection. Lead enters the truth sequence. I didn't fight it. I walked. The siren pulsed through my bones, vibrating down my spine like a metronome. Left foot. Right foot. Everything was frictionless, like Fairfield had finally shed the illusion of time, and I was gliding through a memory someone else had filmed. I arrived back at the town square. No more black stage. No watchers in the risers. No audience. Just the mirror. It stood 20 feet tall in the center of the fountain plaza, rimmed in gold wires that pulsed like veins. Smooth, rippling surface. A mirror that wasn't glass, but liquid thought. And standing in front of it, me, or another me, this one older, aged, lined face, deeper eyes. He wore a ranger jacket with my name on it, Luke, but everything about him was off. He had presence, like he'd played the part longer, better, maybe forever. He turned to me and smiled. This is your final cue, time to look back. I stepped in front of the mirror, and it didn't reflect this version of me. It showed all of them. Every Luke I'd been, every expression, every mistake, every deviation, me as a child. Seeing the siren for the first time, me at 16, trying to kiss Anna Heller before the noise interrupted, me at 23, trying to leave Fairfield but forgetting why I stopped at the gas station, me in the woods, recording the disc, me confessing on the stage, me whispering at the window, me smiling in the mirror, me lying in bed. Watching myself. It was like seeing a life from outside of time. Not lived, performed. The older Luke placed a hand on my shoulder. You've done well. Most don't last this long. You've hit every beat, kept to your arc. You even deviated just enough to stay interesting. They're very pleased. I swallowed. Who is they? He nodded toward the sky. I followed his gaze and saw screens. Hundreds, thousands. Suspended high in the clouds, as if the heavens themselves were production booths, each one showing my story in real time, comments scrolling underneath in languages I didn't recognize, feedback, ratings, adjustments. One screen zoomed in on me right then, watching me watch myself being watched. I nearly collapsed. What do they want? I asked. The older Luke laughed softly. Continuity, believability, conflict, the usual. But more than anything, they want endings, satisfying ones. He gestured to the mirror. You can give them that. You've earned it. Step through. Complete the arc. I didn't move. Somewhere deep inside me, a fragment of what I once was rebelled. I wasn't ready to end. Not if I didn't know which version of me they wanted to kill off. Not if I couldn't choose whether I was the writer or the character. I turned from the mirror. The older Luke frowned. Don't ruin it. They don't like improvisation. The siren spiked, high-pitched now, unstable. The screens above flickered. Feedback, glitching, a stutter in the air, like someone's mouse hovered too long on a button. They weren't supposed to click. Then I did something I'm not sure was allowed. I ran. I bolted from the plaza, down South Elm, past the bakery, past the theater, into the woods behind Miller's Hill. The further I got from the square, the more the world wavered. Trees blinked in and out of focus. The ground folded beneath me. Birds froze mid-flight. Code unraveled at the edges of my vision. I was breaking the fourth wall from the inside. Finally, breathless, I reached the overlook above the lake. And there, I screamed into the void. I choose my own ending. The siren stopped. Dead silence. Then a single tone, soft, approving, like someone somewhere had leaned into a mic and said, interesting. The sky reset. The town went back to normal. I was standing alone, barefoot, holding a notebook that didn't exist yesterday. Its first page reads, Fairfield Acts 2, and below that, characters who survive rewrites must begin again. I woke up in a house that looked like mine, but it wasn't mine. The bed was too smooth. The air smelled of plastic and lemon oil. There was no dust, no creaks in the floorboards. My old coffee mug sat on the counter, but it was polished like it had never been used. Outside, Fairfield gleamed under a pale, hazy sky. The sun hovered too long on the horizon, never rising, never setting. A permanent golden hour. Beautiful, unsettling. My phone was missing. There were no clocks. The notebook I found yesterday now had a second page. It read, "Welcome to Act 2. Your performance has been upgraded. Deviations will be monitored. Memory suppression in progress." But I still remembered everything. The stage, the watchers, the confession, the mirror, the other me, the siren. I was never supposed to remember. I wasn't supposed to survive the scene break. At noon, or what I think was noon, there was a knock on the door. 3 taps, evenly spaced. I opened it slowly, and there they were. Chris, Dave, Mrs. Abernathy, even Mr. Flannery from the old antique shop, all smiling, all wearing the same beige uniforms with identical name tags. Citizen Role, Fairfield said version 2. Zero. Chris stepped forward and handed me a clipboard. "Welcome back. Luke, we're excited for your new role." I stared at him. What happens if I refuse it? Chris didn't blink. There are no refusals, only rewrites. Behind him, the air shimmered like a ripple across a stage backdrop. I could see a warehouse behind it, a soundstage, cameras, monitors, and a door labeled Exit. Scripted Zone Subject 74 Carson. Lukey. I didn't take the clipboard. Instead, I walked past them, out into the town. They didn't stop me. The streets were reset. New coat of paint. Fixed sidewalks. No cracks. No trash. No noise. Everyone I passed had slightly off features. Too symmetrical. Too polite. Eyes that held still too long. It wasn't Fairfield anymore. It was a simulation of Fairfield optimized, corrected, reskinned. And then I saw the tower. The Siren Tower was back but bigger, metallic, smooth like bone, not steel. It pulsed gently at the top, releasing low hums at intervals that matched my heartbeat. When I stared at it, memories faded, not all at once, just fragments. The name of my 4th grade teacher, the color of my old bedroom walls, the sound of my real mother's voice, gone. The siren wasn't just a warning anymore. It was editing me, softly, permanently. I ran back home, locked the doors, opened the notebook again. New words had appeared on page 3. "Congratulations, Lukey. You've become self-aware enough to be rewritten with purpose. The next phase of your story begins now. Please wait for prompts." And beneath that, prompt 1, choose who you betray first. I dropped the notebook, stared out the window. The world outside moved in loops. A woman walked her dog past my window every 3 minutes, exact same route, same step, same leash tangle. A paperboy rode by, tossing the same folded newsprint onto the same patch of lawn again. And again, the world had no progression, only repetition, until I made a choice, until I played my role. I wanted to scream, to claw out of the script, to shout into the sky and demand an ending that was mine. But deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't a prison, it was a stage, and I was still on it. So I picked up the notebook again. I stared at prompt 1, then I turned the page and began to write. Not what they wanted, but my ending, line by line, word by word. I don't know if I'll ever escape Fairfield. I don't know if I was ever real. But if you're reading this, if somehow these words made it off the page, past the watchers, past the rewrite algorithms and through the layers of fiction, remember me, not the character, not the arc, not the rewritten version. Me, Luke Carson, a man who heard the siren and finally understood what it was warning us about.